Cool. I might kick some things off. We get started with a little bit to cover today. Did want to briefly touch base if anyone new is joining that didn't join us last month. These are our Aussie Open Mics, a good chance to come in, meet the community, catch some demos, probably come across some familiar faces. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Always pop them in the chat. We've got the team there that'll jump on it as soon as possible. And of course, you have your direct Discord channels as well. So if anything pops up after the call, feel free to message the team and they'll help you out. Cynics Alliance 2025 event. Rewst will be having a booth there in Sydney next Thursday. So if you guys are in and around, please pop in and say hello. We'll pop the link to the event in the chat and you can take a look and see what that's about. And if you're interested, definitely register and head on down. To kick things off, I'm going to hand over to Ray. He's going to give us some updates.
Okay. Sorry, I was on another bit. Let's bring up this PowerPoint slide again. So over the last month, there's been a number of things that have happened at Rewst, and let me just share my screen. So for April, we've had 4 new integrations come out. We've got Cork, Notion, Asana, and Slide. There's been a lot of work on Transform. So I'm not going to cover this too much because I know it's been raised on the US Open Mic as well. But the marketplace team and the team at Rewst have been working on making all the transforms a lot more usable and friendly, and there are new crates around them to show you how to use them. So that way you don't have to get to complicated Ginger for everything you want to do. You can look at the transforms that have come out and use them in your workflows. There's been a number of improvements to the way App Builder flows and works. The settings buttons moved, the page layout has moved, and there are little bits and pieces of just general UI and usability improvements. I don't have a demo of it here. As I said, it's been raised elsewhere. I will share that information because I'd rather have the product team show you what's happened rather than me clicking through and just looking at bits and pieces. A lot has been happening with PowerShell. There's a number of people who have been using it internally and a number of clients who are now doing a lot more with it. I will be showing a demo a little bit later on this. But yeah, so if you've got any questions after that, feel free to ask me about it. And that's pretty much the main updates for the last month. There are also at least 4 new crates that have come out. There's an alert on new admin accounts, which I believe has been mentioned elsewhere. There's a detect duplicate accounts, which has been also mentioned on the Open Mic specifically to help you look for duplicate users in your AD or Enter accounts. So you can deal with them rather than having them sit there for quite a while. There's also SuperOps RMM, which is now supported. And we have WebRoot and Sentinel-1 updates have been made as well. I will link all the notes in that to the chat and you'll be able to take a look at anything that you're interested in there.
Perfect. Thank you, Ray. Anyone got any questions for Ray just on any of those updates? Very good. Awesome. I am going to jump now to Joe, who's going to chat a bit about the Microsoft bundle structure and any common errors that we do see.
Okay, thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. 1 second. If I know how to do this. Are you guys able to see my screen with no problem?
Yeah.
Yay, nay?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
I can see your screen.
Yeah, so this is going to be me talking about lovely Microsoft Cloud Bundle, common errors, issues that you may run into whenever you're setting it up or consenting, that type of stuff. And yes, Michael forced me to do this. Thank you very much. So why would you switch to the bundle? At this point, it's been about a year since it's been out, but it offers more granular permission control, meaning now you're going to be able to select which permissions you'd want to use in the bundle itself. Simplified management. I don't know if you guys have seen or were able to see what the integration used to look like, and it was basically components of, for example, Graph, Exchange, separate. Now they're all going to be together in one location. Enhanced security. Your Rewst service account now will let you know if it's not using MFA. And future proof, we are keeping this integration up to date. The old one, not so much. We do have documentation. The one that we love the most is the best practices for Microsoft integrations. I will link you guys these docs at the very end of my presentation, so no worries about that. This document goes over how to configure that Rewst service account, the relationship and the roles that those relationships require for your clients, and how the conditional access policies should be set up for our integration. Good thing about this document, if you usually do follow it to a T, you won't hopefully see any of the errors that are going to be talked about here. If you see this, that's not good. That means you're in the legacy integration. Again, this has been about a year. It's not being updated. You will see errors, graph errors, exchange errors, different errors. And if we see this as well, we're going to tell you, hey, you're going to need to migrate. We don't really support this anymore. It's not getting updated. You don't want to be here. So if you see this anywhere in your MSP level, if you see it in your clients, for some reason, get rid of it, burn it with fire, basically. Okay, our first error, this is actually Azure, and Azure specific is what I mean. And what this usually means is that at some point this was authenticated with a user that had different permissions that the current user or service account that you're using to authenticate. Fix for this is to make sure that your permissions for that user match up with the other one. So once you do that, make sure to re-authenticate if you need to. Okay, this one also Azure specific. All you have to do is make sure that it has Key Vault available and set up, and that error should also go away. This one is something you're going to see in, actually the following errors are going to be similar when you consent your clients. The top error you would be able to see, as well as the fail to get the tenant resource ID. The telling sign for this one specific is the two banners, the two green banners, that especially the 1 out of 1 customer consents were created successfully. What this means is things are correct. It's just taking that good old Microsoft minute for everything to trickle down into the Rewst integration. So this could take up to 48 hours. Keep that in mind. The fix for this really is for you to go ahead and wait and give it time, wait an hour or wait 24 hours or even sometimes even to 48 hours. So this one is gonna go, and again, goes back to the documentation that I referenced, the best practices, making sure that the relationships that you have with your clients in your partner center do have all the 12 roles. Even if it's missing one role, you're going to see this error. So fix for this, make sure that the relationship is good and those groups in that relationship actually have their appropriate role. Same thing for this one. You're not going to see 3. You're actually probably going to see all the permissions that are missing. Same thing. Make sure that your relationships, that their groups actually have their roles assigned. Now, these are other errors that are all not the same, basically. So for this one, this means that likely the service account that you're using doesn't have the authorization in the app, or it's a guest of the tenant, or maybe a conditional access policy is blocking the service account from being able to see it. Just make sure you follow the document for the best practices for Microsoft, and make sure that your service account has the right permissions, is not being blocked anywhere. This one's a little bit more clear. This is going to tell you, hey, conditional access policies, they're blocking. So again, make sure best practices, your conditional access policies are set up correctly. You should be good to go. In this one, going back to those relationships, but this one's a little bit different because it could mean that their relationship has not been authorized. So make sure that you log in into your client's tenant and that the relationships are authorized as they should. Now, this error you're going to see if you click on the refresh options button in the integration. And what that means is that the service account being used does not have the admin agents, or does not belong in the admin agents group. All you got to do is make sure to add it into the group and reauthorize. Then you can do the refresh options. This should go away. Things that you have in Rewst that you can leverage to, make sure that all this stuff doesn't happen. We do have a document with common issues with Microsoft Bundle. It does cover a little bit more errors. You do have the GDAP relationship crate. Now, this one, we basically do it for you. If you look at the documentation, or if you remember how the old setup was, you would have to go through each of the relationships, assign, create the group, assign the roles, all that stuff. We do this for you with the exception that the relationship has to be approved manually. You also have the M365 CSP GDAP permission checker. And this one you want to use if you just really don't know what is missing. You can actually use this tool to see what role is missing in that group for the relationship with the client. And that is it. I will link you guys the documents and let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks, Joe. Drop any questions that you guys have in the chat, or if anyone has any immediate questions, we can definitely ask Joe now. Anyone? Cool. I'm going to call out to Tim. Tim Hunt, are you around? A demo with you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks. There you are.
All righty. Hello, everybody. I'm Tim. I'm the technical manager at Colton Computers. We've been with Rewst about 18 months now. We went with Rewst originally because of the integrations was more in line with what our stack was, and the customization that Rewst provided was going to be a lot better than the other options out there. And the workflow I'm going to be showing you today is our 365 tenancies for our clients. So it does a bunch of things. It does some secure score settings, which if you use a third-party spam filter or something, those secure score controls don't get marked as completed. So your secure score gets tanked. So it sets about 20 of those that were selected for spam filtering. Then it will also go through and configure audit logs, mailbox auditing for all users, sets anti-phish policies, so all those sort of fun things that Microsoft says you should turn on. And then it will also create 2 conditional access policies depending on if the client has a P1 license or not. It will create a block legacy auth and MFA for admins straight off the bat. And then obviously MFA for all users, you need to communicate with clients and all that sort of fun stuff. So this one's more designed, you can run it straight off the bat and it's not going to affect anybody when they go to work. So this would take us about an hour at least per client. It's now down to as simple as clicking submit on a form for the tech, which is pretty handy. So all the tech needs to do now is there's this form, they select the customer and select the project ticket number, because this is done during the onboarding of a client for us, drops logs into the ticket, notes, all those sort of fun things you need to have. It will then go to this workflow, which is a little bit simpler, but will get messy. So the first one is it will set the secure score, which is this one here. As I said, this is where it gets messy. First part at the top here, it gets a JSON list of the controls that we have, the 20, loops through them, sees if they are marked as completed or not. If they aren't marked as completed, it will mark them. If not, move on. Then it will go to the restrict additional storage for Outlook, which is another control. We'll get the sharing policy for calendars and disable that if required. It will enable auditing for all mailboxes. It will then enable the admin audit log as well. Then for the anti-phish policy, you can only turn or enable most of these controls if you have what I think it's a Defender license, or it's not included in business basic licensing. So it will do a check to see if they've got the licensing required to put this policy on, and then it will enforce it based off their set. What is it? It's a mail safety tip for the first time you're receiving an email from somebody. We'll put all that on the emails and everything. It will then get the secure score after it's done all its magic. It will then save it as a org variable because we're another workflow that checks to see if they've dropped. I think it's 15 points we've got it set at, and pop a ticket from there. Then it will move on to the create conditional access. And again, to create conditional access, you need to enter a P1 or a P2 license. So it does a quick check to make sure it's got the licensing. And as we know, we need to wait a Microsoft minute when you turn stuff off. So it does a bit of a loop to make sure it disables the secure defaults properly. And then it will check the conditional access policies to see if there's already existing ones for block legacy auth or admin, MFA for admin. And it will create them if they don't exist. And then it all comes back and adds all the logs and everything that's been done to the ticket from there. Any questions?
I have lots.
Sure, go.
I do a lot of this already in PowerShell and things like that, so I understand exactly what you're trying to do with this, and I can understand why it takes an hour to do these things. That makes sense. With the conditional access componentry around your setups and your baselines, you've got the JSONs that I'm guessing that you're referencing to do that. I think you mentioned that. Are you doing that against privileged roles, or are you specifying the user accounts, or how are you managing it through a GDAP perspective?
It's privileged roles for the MFA for admin.
Okay, so even in a GDAP perspective where your staff are coming through on it, they're still being treated under these same parameters because you've got to align against both your parameters and the clients.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Yep. From the uplift of your baselines, you would go in and obviously change the JSONs and then have to upload them into this workflow and then change them. Is that how you do it?
No, they're just templates. So Microsoft have got that default template option when you go into conditional access. I just pulled them out of there and modified them. I added a few more roles to what Microsoft put in theirs.
But say you want to change the baseline in any given way, you're repeating that process, and are you storing that in here, or are you referencing that from a dynamic location?
Storing it in Rewst. It's a template.
Yeah. Okay.
So if I wanted to change it, it's just change the template and then change it across the board.
And then coming through to the audit settings, I know a number of these settings are actually on mailboxes. And again, we PowerShell this and we set it and we do it on an onboarding procedure like you do in this. But when it's individual users, if it's not being run periodically, it's actually not picking up on those settings per new user.
So I think on our user creation, we got to complete a workflow that will turn on the mailbox
you have
auditing.
One that's doing all of that individual auditing componentry and litigation hold and all that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We haven't gotten to that point yet. We're trying to fix it.
Yeah, I haven't got to litigation hold yet. It's just logging and the user personation one.
Yep. Very cool. Love it. Can I have it?
If you ask nicely.
Please.
Uh,
I'll ask the man himself next week at Evolve.
yep. You'll throw me under the bus.
No, great work. That's really, really cool. It's a very, very cool implementation of it. I love it.
Yeah, it was a bit of fun to get working.
Yeah, I'm currently working on our new CA baselines, and they're literally, I've gone from our standard 5, depending on the client, to now 12, where we're doing like device compliancy and things like that, and it's a headache, to say the least.
Yeah, I even did one, I think 2 weeks ago, where it actually does compare to what our standard is to what's actually in the tenancy, and you don't want to see the ginger for that because it is ugly.
Just want to throw in there, have you guys looked down the SIP platform for that sort of stuff as well? CIPP.
Well, that's we were looking at SIP before we went to Rewst. But
So,
we
yeah, obviously we implemented both because, yeah, one's more of an ad hoc response, one's more of a preemptive response, if you know what I mean. But that's, yeah, Rewst for the implementation, but SIP for the baseline drift is what we've done it for. But yeah.
Yeah, I think there's value in both. We use LionGuard and Rewst for the exact same reason. Audit logging and tracking for drift in LionGuard, and then obviously execution is moving from our current PowerShell methodologies into Rewst.
Nice. Well, thank you guys. Cheers, Tim, for sharing that one. I'm sure you'll have
Hey, one
questions
question, Tim.
for me.
What is there anything you wish you knew before you started working on this? For anyone else who's looking at trying to do this sort of work.
don't believe Microsoft documentation. I literally only got about an hour ago. I got the adding all users to the user impersonation because you've got to add them one by one through the GUI, which is a pain in the ass. And Microsoft documentation said put a comma, just have display name, email, comma, next one. Yeah, you don't do that. You just push the array straight in and it's happy. I spent 3 hours on that today.
One thing I found is when working with policies in Microsoft Graph, F12, and the browser, that's the best way to do it, particularly with assignment and stuff like that. Yeah, like I said, Microsoft documentation doesn't really tell you how to do the assignment until you actually have to go and do it and get the browser details out.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that.
Thanks. And now we're going to jump back to Ray, who has an awesome demo for us.
So one of the things that keeps coming up for a lot of people right now is they ask, great, you've got PowerShell, how do I use it? What can I use it for within Rewst? And just give me a sec while I get this share set up properly. It must be that one. Awesome. So what I did, I went internally in Rewst, found one of our most common used workflows, and then I'm going to look at how hard is it to actually convert this from being all Ginger based to a full PowerShell implementation of the same thing. So all of this, everything it's doing, other than the graph actions themselves, they're all just pure PowerShell. So what I will say, on a form, I wouldn't suggest putting any PowerShell here. In all honesty, you don't want to slow down forms for end users, just for any sort of conditions on this page. But if we jump into one of the options generators, for instance, it's going to be pretty much the exact same you normally see, other than I'm converting things in PowerShell to JSON objects. Some of this code is going to be terrible because I've tried different ways of doing it just to make sure it will work, right? So write outputs. What you want to do for an options generator, though, specifically, is you need to make sure when you are getting your array back as PowerShell, it has to be one array object as a standard options generator wants it to be. So when you get the final result in the context, it is still just your list of all your tickets as one array or list, right? So whenever you're dealing with options generators, however you do it, make sure you're just outputting that single array and that's it. Otherwise, you're going to run into issues. Pretty much every single point works. The one bit I did run into an issue with right now is that org vars are not supported in PowerShell in our current implementation. So the one thing you end up doing, or I'm doing currently, which will be in the master workflow, is on start, anything that's an organization variable, I'm using the Ginger to just pull it out and put it into a data array list so it is in the context for later in the script, in the workflow. This way, for anyone who only knows PowerShell, all you need to know is to pull out an org variable, just double squiggly brackets org.variable.value and add it as a data array list. Right now I can click through everything. You can see our workflow in PowerShell, but that bit's pretty much stuff that you've all seen before. Does anyone have any questions about this?
Is there any use case you can consider where PowerShell would be the better option? Because I've gone down the route of learning Ginger and I find it to be quite useful in this case.
So in all honesty, if you know Ginger for just these bits, no. So let's say if all I'm doing is working out how to grab out the list of users and then pull out that list and then forward it through to another item or an object. No, Ginger, if you understand Ginger and you can do it in Ginger, that works perfectly. The areas that PowerShell become nice is, let's say I do want to throw something off to an Azure function and then generate a PDF file, save it to an Azure blob, and then download it, attach it to my email and send it off. If you want to use like PowerShell modules or other bits and pieces to do extra work on top of what you normally do, that's where I'm seeing the most benefit for it myself, but I also understand Ginger extremely well. So
I was going to say, I literally did that workflow last week in Ginger.
Yeah, but you get the idea, right? There are going to be some modules that you cannot run in Rewst using Ginger, where there might be a function or something you want to do, I don't know, a file download, a conversion, a zip compression, and then sending it off somewhere, for instance, or something like that.
Yeah, 100%.
But that's where I'm seeing the most benefit for having it. But the reason I'm going over this is if you don't know Ginger at all and you're brand new to Rewst, this is how you would do it. You would, all your conditions are the same. For conditions, as all we know, all you want to get back is either a true or false value. That's it. But yeah, it all works. The workflow runs beginning to end. It runs all the functions and it just does exactly what it needs to do.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ray. Anyone has any more questions, definitely pop them in the chat or raise your hand and we'll jump straight across to you.
Yeah, sorry, I'll put this in chat, but are you able to quickly show us how you could import a PowerShell module that's not included in the function app? I got as far as the testing PowerShell, but couldn't figure out how to get a custom module or anything from like the PS store or anything to work.
Okay, yeah. So there is a 45-second timeout. Let me just see if I can get the code that I've been using for it. And give me a second.
Is it you install it every time you run it type setup, or can you import it into the function somehow so it's there for use?
So I've heard people say they are editing the back end of PowerShell. I haven't done too much in editing the back end, but a lot of people who are using it right now are importing their modules into files on the back end within the Azure function itself. I know if you look in the PowerShell beta channel in Discord, a lot of people talking about that. But let me see if I can find what I've done.
Maybe that's what I'm missing. Maybe I don't have access to that channel.
Possibly. So this is what I ended up doing, right? I went in and set the environmental variable flag. I think it's website run from package. I changed that on the Azure side so I could then make edits to my Azure function natively. But then I've been messing around with writing a workflow for PowerShell that works a lot like say running something in Data RMM or anything else like that. So in other words, my workflow will go off because there's a 45-second timeout on a HTTPS request right now for us talking to your Azure function and coming back. The way we get data from your RMM endpoints is we'll create a webhook, then we'll send that data off to your virtual machine, your desktop, whatever. The server then does its command and then it posts back to a webhook ID. So currently I can run PowerShell for up to 30 minutes, I think, on an Azure function, get it to process to work, and then bring the data back. So to answer your question, the way I'm actually doing it is I'm doing stuff like this, where I've edited my Azure function so I can add whatever modules I want to install. And I can then add whatever function code I want to be used within that within this PowerShell script. So I can set up all my functions in an action up the top here, and then just keep pushing them through. I can possibly share out some of this data later if you want to try messing with it this way.
Yeah, that'd be cool. When we played around with it, we did like a basic hello world and then went, this is great. We've got a bunch of legacy PowerShell stuff that would be great to sort of lift and shift, but it's got a lot of external modules that would need to be available if we were going to do that. So
yeah. If you can just message the Rock in your Discord channel after this, I'll get you added to, see if I can get you added to the Discord channel a bit around PowerShell. And if anyone else wants to be added to it, just send us a message and I'll see about getting you added as well.
Cool.
Thanks, Ray. That concludes what we had planned for Open Mic today. And give you guys a little bit of time back. I did want to reach out to see if anyone else wanted to kind of pop their hand up if they had any cool demos that they wanted to share or to run into any type of troubleshoot tips. Anything along those lines, feel free to reach out to the team. You can pop your hand up here, message us in the chat, or by all means, you can message the team on Discord as well, and they can liaise that back to us. But yeah, that kind of concludes today, and happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Ciao.
Take care.
No worries.
Bye.
Enjoy your
Ciao.
weekend. Bye.
Bye.